welcome to the third Business Owner Strategy Forum. It's great to see everybody jumping online again, and today we've obviously got some new panellists that are relevant speakers and relevant sort of experts in their field to help us navigate through some complexity that we have in our businesses right now. So for all those that, for first time that they've jumped on, my name is Matt Murphy, and I'm Managing Partner of Prime Accounting and Business Advisory. And so we're here to host this forum. What the forum's all about is to connect business owners, share information, support people in our business lives and our individual lives, strategize to how we can actually navigate through the complexity of what we're dealing with right now, and also obviously implement those strategies. So fundamentally, that's what this forum's about, and we connect up once a week, which we're doing right now, but we also have a forum chat and also information share on Workplace, which we'll give you the details on after the end of this presentation. So that's pretty much the opening to what we're really talking about today. Now, there's the agenda for today is we're going to talk a little bit about just give everybody an update on the government stimulus, because we've got a third announcement this week. We've got some industry experts, banking experts, that we're going to get some knowledge and information around how the banks are handling the response to the situation we're in. And we've also got an expert around managing stress, which is a pretty hot topic right now for everybody who's trying to run businesses and navigate through the complexity. So it's fundamentally what we're going to do. As per the last the last couple of weeks, we're going to do the presentations first, and then we'll open up for forum questions. There's lots of content, and each one of these presentations could go well beyond an hour, but the reality is we're trying to provide you with as much information as we can in such a short period of time. And so we'll get across as much detail in those presentations, and then we'll open it up for questions. Last session we had about 23 questions. We'll try and get through all of those, but the presentations probably go for the next 30 to 40 minutes. And then we open up for everybody to ask questions, and we'll answer those as best we possibly can. So that's fundamentally how the day is going to run. So I'm going to hand it over to our first speaker, being Paul Manieri, who's Director of Prime Accounting Business Advisory. Paul works directly with me and helps all of our clients, with their accounting, advisory and tax needs, and is very much across all of the things that we're dealing with regards to the government stimulus. So Paul's just going to give us a bit of an update on the third announcement that we actually received from the government on Monday night. Now, the reason why it'll be a very short presentation is because of the fact that it's just an announcement at the moment, and we don't expect to get legislation passed until middle of next week. And so really a lot of the questions that most people have got and that we've been fielding all week with our clients, we can't answer because there isn't any detail based on the legislation at this particular point in time, but certainly we'll present the information that we do know. And then once we get more information, next week's forum, I dare say, we'll give everybody an update as to what further detail looks like. But I'll hand it over for Paul for a quick update on that announcement.
Thanks, Matt, and hi everyone. I will pop up some slides. Okay, so are they coming through okay? So basically, yeah, so to reiterate what Matt had said before, we're sort of in a holding pattern at the moment, sort of waiting for further detail. We had the Prime Minister speak on Monday night. That was followed up by some fact sheets with the public. Those fact sheets were in turn updated on Wednesday with some more detail, which we'll get to. But at this stage, yeah, we are still waiting for some legislation to be provided, which will hopefully provide us with more guidance to allow us to make decisions going forward. So
Paul, I just noticed that your voice is a bit scratchy.
Is JobKeeper payment. No problem. Is that coming through clearer?
A little bit clearer now. We're just obviously all getting a little bit, the bandwidth on all of our internets is getting very tested at the moment, so we apologise for the scratchy sound, but hopefully that'll be a bit better now. And obviously we can see your slideshow in form of presentation, but that's okay. Just keep going because
sure, no problem. So intended to provide a wage subsidy for employers that have been impacted by COVID-19. In basic terms, it's for each eligible employee for an employer, $1,500 per fortnight from 30th of March to be paid for a maximum period of 6 months. As Matt mentioned, legislation expected to be passed next Wednesday, which will give us hopefully more guidance on how the specifics will work. But in the meantime, while we wait for that, you can register an intention to apply on the ATO website. It's basically a simple form to fill out with contact details and business details. And then from there, that'll have got the registration done, and we'll wait for the actual process to start. For employers, the initial commentary was around business turnover falling by 30% or more, or 50% for larger businesses. Commentary in the fact sheet said that most businesses would be expected to establish that their turnover has fallen relative to their turnover a year earlier. Now, that's where a lot of the questions that we've been dealing with clients on have sort of touched upon, is that may not be the greatest measurement of their impact of this issue on their business. So the initial update on Wednesday effectively covered off on startups who may not have had that history to reference to, or businesses where turnover in the prior year was not representative of usual average turnover, so businesses that had acquired other businesses, or where growth has been in place for the first 9 months that may be impacted going forward. So the Tax Commissioner has discretion, or that's been an indication we've got at the moment, to potentially allow for those businesses to be eligible. But that's the wait and see. On the employer side, they must have had an existing employment relationship with the eligible employees as of the 1st of March. If we look at the eligible employees criteria, effectively it includes people that are currently employed by the eligible employer, which does include employees that have been stood down or rehired in the recent terms. It also covers part-time, full-time or casual employment, where that casual employment has existed for more than 12 months as at the 1st of March 2020. Employees must be at least 16 years of age, Australian citizen or permanent visa holder, or New Zealanders working in Australia. And the employees can only receive one JobKeeper payment from an employer. So those employees working multiple jobs, there's a register of employees recorded for each business, so that will avoid doubling up on employees receiving multiple payments. So for what we know about the application process at this stage, we can register the interest via the ATO website, as mentioned before. We understand there'll be an online application, and the first payment will be received in the first week of May, backdated to cover the period of April, so when this came into effect on the 30th of March. Eligible employers to identify who those eligible employees will be and provide updates to the ATO on that basis. And employers must ensure that the employees receive at least $1,500 per fortnight before tax. There's a choice for the employer to apply superannuation on the additional component that is paid because of this JobKeeper payment. And the measures also include businesses without employees, which could include sole traders and the like. So I've got a bit of an example here that sort of covers off on how the payment could be applied in different scenarios. So in this example provided by the government, Adam, who owns a real estate business with 2 employees, one of those employees, Anne, is on a full-time salary of $3,000 per fortnight. Nick is permanently hired on and receiving $1,000 per fortnight. In this example, the business is still operating and paying employees, but does expect that there will be a decline in the revenue by more than 30% in the future periods. And so on that basis, is eligible to receive the JobKeeper payment for each of those employees. In this example of Anne, her $3,000 full-time salary, if that's continued to be paid, the $1,500 JobKeeper payment subsidy that the business will receive effectively can be kept by that business if it continues to pay Anne her $3,000 salary per fortnight. The superannuation for Anne's payment should be in relation to her existing salary on that $3,000. in Nick's example, his existing salary on a part-time basis is $1,000 per fortnight. Now, of the JobKeeper subsidy that the business will receive, it can pay $500 of that to Nick to bring him to the total of $1,500. So ensuring that each eligible employee receives at least $1,500. The business that receives the $1,500 JobKeeper payment must pay the superannuation component on his existing salary of $1,000 per fortnight, and has the option of providing the superannuation on the additional $500 if it chooses. So that's probably just touches on how the $1,500 will apply for different scenarios. There will also be examples where businesses have stood down employees, and if they are eligible, then the $1,500 they would receive for that employee would in turn be quite simply just passed on to the employee, and then no superannuation on that particular example would apply. So that's it in a nutshell. I guess there are, as Matt mentioned and we sort of touched on before, a lot of the discussions we're having with clients have sort of touched on the eligibility criteria, and there's been a lot of examples around different business types and stages that, on the face of it, don't meet this simple criteria. So the next step for us is to understand what the legislation will provide in relation to clarity, and from there be able to provide some, structure around what that means and assist with planning from there.
Thanks, Paul. That was a great update. And obviously, we're trying to decipher as fast as we possibly can to be able to help, businesses navigate through this and be able to maximise the benefits that the government are providing at the moment to help us through this difficult time. So we'll provide a greater update next week once hopefully that legislation gets passed. And so we'll have greater clarity around some of the complexity in this piece of law. So let me just, so hopefully you can see my screen now. But so our next presenters, Paul Gersler and also Caroline Gawn, they're from Westpac Bank. They're our relationship manager there, and we reached out to them earlier this week and last week to talk to them about, getting a greater understanding about, the bank's involvement and their bank's response to, what's going on at the moment. Obviously, we hear lots of things in the media. A lot of us have already approached our banks and said, how can you sort of support us and help us at the moment in business and also in our personal borrowings? And so Paul is here probably and Caroline as a sort of long-standing industry bank person rather than sort of wearing the Westpac hat at the end of the day. So because he didn't get his slides approved through marketing because of the speed in which we actually are putting this stuff together. So, that's a disclaimer for the day anyway. But, Paul's really here to sort of help us understand the banking landscape and what's going on at the moment. So, Paul, I will keep the slides going on here for you. So, and Caroline. So I've got, hopefully you can see that slide up on the screen now.
Yes, thank you. Just to confirm, you can hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Fantastic, and hopefully clearly. Okay, so thank you, Matthew, for the arranging this forum, and thank you for the opportunity to reach out to some of the people who've joined in this morning. With me is Caroline Gawn. Just a very brief background. I run the professional services space for Westpac in Australia. We obviously deal with a lot of accountants in that situation, and we're getting lots of feedback via that accounting network. So, and Caroline runs pretty much our largest portfolio in the country of professional services clients, including, as Matthew said, the good people at Prime. So it's been a very weird world, and just speaking, listening to what Paul said, there's a lot of detail and a lot of things happening very rapidly at the moment, and the bank has been working, I would argue, well, probably 24/7 at the moment. Fortunately, not me personally 24/7, but the bank has been working very hard at board level, at executive level to respond to this, what I would say is an evolving situation. I had, because of my age, as you can probably look at me, I did go through the GFC. Some of the younger ones are not too sure about the GFC. I had hoped that was going to be my one experience of such a unusual disruption to the financial markets. So with that in mind, I'd like to just, and part of what I'm saying here is part as Matthew said, as Westpac, part also as a long-term participant in the industry. And one thing we have a great benefit in Australia at this point in time is having a very strong banking system. It is very sound and it is pretty much ready to respond. Very brief background, we very highly regulated by APRA, ASIC and the ACCC. Post GFC, there's been worldwide a necessity to change the way we manage our deposit base, how much wholesale funding we can get from the international markets, and also improve our capital base. And if I can say one thing, strong capital bases are very handy at this point of time in the cycle. So in one way, we've saved for the rainy day, proverbial rainy day. On the Westpac side, and I'll come into probably what Paul was saying, he was talking about the detail of the JobKeepers policy. At the higher macro level, we do have, I can say this without any hesitation, the best economist in the country, Mr. Bill Evans. And Bill has had forecast that following the government's changes to the way we interact socially and pretty much closing down the entertainment and cafe industry and restaurant industries and other industries, that he forecast prior to the JobKeepers policy that GDP was going to contract by what is, as someone who's studied economics at university, it staggers me to say this, an 8.5% contraction in June, followed by a smaller one of 6.6 in September, thankfully rebounding in the following December quarter, but overall a 5% reduction in GDP, which is massive. And the implications of that were up to 1.7 million people being thrown onto the unemployment line, peaking at 17%, but then with the rebound in December quarter, softening out at 9%. Fundamentally, the game changer, as Bill said, is that we now expect, with the JobKeepers policy, not as across the detail as Paul is regarding eligibility, but at a macro level, we now expect the unemployment rate to peak at 9% in June and settle back to around 7% at the end of this calendar year. Now, I think I forgot to check this fact, but I think we're roughly at 5% at the moment. So to be at 7% at the end of this calendar year is not that exciting, but certainly it's a lot better than we potentially could have been without the JobKeepers Seekers package, which I understand is costing a massive $130 billion over the 2-year period. So whilst it's going to add to our debt load in the Australian economy, our view at Westpac at least is that it is a prudent policy in terms of getting us out of the difficulties and be cheaper doing this now than holding off in the longer term. So whilst I'm sure Matthew and Prime and other people will be able to give you some advice about eligibility, at a macro level, it is quite exciting in terms of helping and support the economy. Okay, just flicking across. Thank you, Matthew. That's great. As an industry, though, we have, I just wanted to come back, and these are some of the things I've looked across all the banks, what we're doing. The branch network remains open. Some branches have closed, to be fair, but predominantly there is an access to the network across Australia, which is quite extensive, as you know. We are, and we have been encouraging, if you don't know, for many, many years, for clients to use online banking. It's more efficient. And certainly helps with your management of your businesses if you're doing it that way. That said, some clients still need to interact with our branch networks, and they are still up and running. The other thing is that the banks have all released business relief packages, which will facilitate clients. Initially, we as an industry focused on clients up to $3 million in business exposures. Following last week's activity, we now have that up to clients with up to $10 million in facilities. So that's a significant portion of the Australian business community covered by what I'm going to detail in a bit further. Effectively, there is, and this is what probably get a few questions and answers later on. The government have also put in a SME government loan. It's up to 3 years, up to 250. We'll go into a bit more detail on that in the next slide. We are providing assistance as an industry to, in terms of waiving fees for loan restructures, etc. One slight example of that is at Westpac, all our cash-backed business loans in existence have been dropped by 1%, all the overdrafts automatically by 2%. So that's just some example. We're not interrogating clients as an industry to the nth degree on the impact of COVID-19. We're pretty much getting clients to self-articulate that or verify that, so that's good. And you're not ultimately going to be impacted if you go to the bank and seek a repayment change in terms of your credit rating. The banking industry is still working with that, but we're not here to punish you. It doesn't help us with having a portfolio of clients with adverse outcomes on their credit bureau. Matthew, I just might go to the next page if I can. Now, fundamentally, again, 0 to 10 million was 0 to 3. Now it's 0 to $10 million in business-related finance. My understanding is that each bank might be slightly different, but that will now cover approximately 95% of our customer base. If anybody on the phone or on the forum today, anything above 10 million, we are looking at them on a case-by-case basis, because some of our exposures, as you can imagine, are quite significant, you know, the 30 to 40 to 50 million. And in conjunction with APRA, the approach has been we will talk to those clients on a separate, bespoke basis. So the exciting thing, and I think it is exciting, is that the bank industry and Westpac, including in that, will allow for initially up to 6 months of loan repayment deferrals. Now, as a crusty old banker, I cannot believe we would ever consider as an industry just suspending principal and interest payments for 6 months. You know, I have to pinch myself when I hear that, but in the circumstance, it is clearly appropriate, it is clearly needed, and it does give the economy some breathing space. And I think it's a great outcome for clients. There is also a great scheme for smaller customers, and typically they are smaller customers, that is supported by the government. And by supported by the government, it means that what they will guarantee 50% of the exposure we provide as an industry or as a bank to any particular client. We will provide, and at Westpac at least, merchant terminal fee relief. Hopefully that will be something that you can get through your bank. And there are special, and it will be varied between each bank, special term deposit rates for businesses, and there are special circumstances now for terminating longer term deposits if clients need the money. And I think we all, well, not all be aware, but you cannot typically you know, break a term deposit unless you give 31 days notice. And that was something that actually came in out of the GFC, so there wouldn't be a run-on deposit. So that mechanism was in place. So in particular circumstances now of hardship, you have a capacity to approach your bank and talk through circumstances that will allow you to get access to that money. Right, I might just quickly go to Caroline to talk about, and Caroline is a safe distance behind me, it might look like on the screen, talk about what we're also doing with regard to our consumer clients. And quite often in our space, we deal with a lot of clients will have business debts, but equally so, we're dealing typically, as a lot of people on the forum, the owners of the business, and they have, you know, investment property loans, they have home loans, etc. So we're looking at both sides of the equation, and I thought I might just get Caroline to talk a little bit about that. but without mentioning names, she might go through one scenario or one of her particular clients as an illustration of how we've approached that. So,
yeah,
Caroline?
Thanks, Paul. So similar to what we're offering for businesses, we can also offer a 3-month deferral of home loan repayments with the option to extend that for 3 months at the end of that first 3-month period. So basically, for any home loan borrower who has lost their job or whose income has been impacted by COVID-19, they can go into the Westpac website, and it would be the same for any other bank, and it's an amazingly simple process. It takes about 2 minutes. You log on, you just have to declare that your income has been impacted by COVID-19. You're asked a couple of quick questions, and it is literally a 2-minute process. Now that goes to a centralised processing area, and they'll give you a response in a couple of days saying that they're looking at it, and all they'll be doing is basically checking past account conduct. So there might be, it won't be as simple a process if you have had a history of arrears, but if there's been no account conduct issues in the past, it should just go straight through. And the only documentation you'll get is an email confirmation to say that your repayments have been suspended. So quite incredible from, you know, where we've come in the past, where we've been in the past. So so that's great. And I have one customer who is a mid-tier law firm, and their partners are expecting a slowdown in debtor collections, certainly, and activity generally, but immediately now they've decided that they're going to take a 50% cut in their profit distribution, excuse me. So their partners, the partners of that firm who have home loans, have gone in online and are in the process of getting those suspended. And on the business side of things too, the relationship managers at Westpac have also been granted a business relief credit approval authority. So that means essentially we can approve up to $250,000 on the spot. We just need to have an understanding of how the business has been impacted by COVID-19 and what measures the business is taking to cut what costs that they can. But providing we can explain that, we can give approval instantly. Now we're still sorting out what documentation will be issued to the customers as a result of that, but I believe it's going to be, we understand it's going to be very much a shortcut process. So it's great, really. Very, very easy compared to the normal process.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. One key thing is when you apply for the loan, business loan or the consumer loan deferrals, it is a online process. It is a amazingly simple process. It's an amazing quick process. The process, that part of the input is relatively easy. We are no doubt experiencing significant volumes at the moment. So I think people in the modern day and age, they see so-and-so, we acknowledge you've got your application in. It is taking us a bit of time to get through them. So in the context of a 6-month deferral on your business loans, you may need to be a bit flexible in terms of timing. It might take us a week to get back to you, basically. Okay.
But the important thing to point out is that if you have a repayment that came due within that period, they'll reimburse you for that. So yes. So you won't be disadvantaged by the time that it takes the bank to process that.
And the other thing that Caroline mentioned is a very important thing. Our internal credit approval processes have been devolved to a point to the actual managers to enable them to have this short term fast track approval for, I think it's a certain dollar amount. So that has definitely speeded up our internal approval process internally. It's important to realise on the loan deferral, what we also will do is extend the loan by the 6 months, so you're not actually squeezing in your repayments. I've written down on my notes, there is no free holiday. It is an interest deferral. It is not an interest waiver, unfortunately. If we waived all the business loan interest for 6 months, literally, I think Westpac would be struggling quite significantly, and I think it's a good thing to have one of our major banks struggling at the moment. So I think at the end of the day, I think it's a very good first step from the industry, and I think we've developed this in 3 or 4 weeks. I think it's more generically available across most banks, if not all banks at this stage. So I'll be encouraging you all to speak to your banker about that ASAP. I might just flick across the page, Matthew, if you could, please. I think you must communicate at a time like this. Communication is the key. And I think you should be speaking to your trusted advisors, that's particularly your accountants and your lawyers, your key executives or your businesses, etc. Now, why do I say that? I think you should be doing it all the time, but why in this time? Whilst the bank may be able to give you 6 months of deferrals, in 6 months' time, you will need to potentially, all things being equal, recommence making those interest and principal repayments. I would think that if you may need then to go back to your bank and have an adjustment to what had been in place prior to this crisis, that you may need to have a better and more robust information, better forecasts. You better be better able to articulate what changes you made to your business model. You've changed your cost structure and how you're approaching, inverted commas, the brave new world. So I wouldn't think it'd be a good idea to rock up in 6 months' time and just hope that the banking system will roll over these loans for another 6 months. And let's hope that isn't required, because that would mean we're all in a better situation. So firstly, my strong advice is speak to your trusted advisor. The other bit of advice, and I've got some stats in this, which I've just come in this morning, is
just speak openly and
frankly.
Paul. Sorry, just conscious of a bit of time. Just if you could sort of we've just got a couple of minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So quickly speak openly and frankly to your banker. They should be considered one of your trusted advisors. Hopefully you know who your banker is, and take care of yourself in the business. I think we've got some stuff coming out. I'll just quickly go. I've got one set of stats here, Matthew, that came through this morning from someone I know who does a bit of research, and he said that where basically clients have had a discussion with their bank, 82% found their bank to be supportive, or very supportive. So I think the banks are being open for business in terms of helping you. So please communicate with your bank as quickly and as openly as you can. I'll leave it there, and I think we've got questions later on.
Yeah, we have. Thanks, Paul and Caroline, and we will have some questions later on, but that was great. Gives us a sense of it, and we might talk a little bit more about the 250,000 unsecured loan as well, because I know that's kind of a bit of a topic at the moment. But just in the interest of just getting through and giving as much value as we can in today's session, and obviously all these presentations will be online post presentation, and this also gets recorded as well for people to sit and reflect on. So the third presenter and speaker that we've got today is Sarah McCrum. So Sarah, I've worked with for 5 years. She's been my mindset coach. She's helped manage my stress and helped me remain pretty mentally strong to help me lead the business that I've been in for 20 years. And she's got an interesting mix of background, which is probably why she's been successfully able to manage me. Sort of originally educated in Cambridge in the UK, and then trained for 22 years under a Chinese master to have a unique combination of that she uses to teach business owners on how to develop their inner skills and manage the challenges of money, their business and family life. So I thought it'd be great to get Sarah along to discuss some of the practical teachings to help us protect our energy, ensure we're managing our stress in these times, because no doubt everybody has had to deal with some form of stress in the last couple of weeks in their businesses and in their lives as well. So Sarah, I'm going to hand control over to you for you to present.
Thank you very much, Matt. So it's a really interesting thing that we will very often, as business owners, put ourselves last, and our health and well-being we will very often sacrifice for the needs of everybody else around us, which is extremely understandable. But it was nice to see that Paul's last line was take care of yourself. You are the key to your business. And so what I want to talk about is some really simple stuff that you can do. And I'm going to ask you to listen really carefully to what I say, because what I'm talking about is so simple, it's really easy to say, oh yeah, I know that. But if you feel stressed about the situation, or you have felt stressed recently, actually you don't know it, okay? And I think we have a habit of saying, okay, whatever, I'll deal with that later. I'll find time for myself later. I've got these really important things to deal with, which is about money and business and numbers and facts. And the language that's about you doesn't work in money and facts and numbers until it gets so bad that you've got the doctors counting your numbers. And that's what we want to avoid, okay? So I'm going to ask you to just listen to some very, very simple points that you will know somewhere inside yourself. And what I would love to see is that if you have been experiencing stress, you pick up something in here that will enable you and empower you to actually change the way you do things. I'm going to share my screen. Just, there we go. So this is specifically about how to manage stress and anxiety in challenging times. It's actually the same for all times, but these are exceptional. And there are very few people I've met who have not been experiencing considerable stress. It may not be about the business, it may be about other things. So let's just start by looking at why really this is important. It's easy to say, well, of course it's obvious, you know, it's obvious to take care of it, but actually there are really significant implications if you don't take care of yourself. So the first very obvious reason is for your family. You know, I know, we all know that if we are very stressed, that does have an impact on the family. Even if you are not at home, and it's very possible for many people now that you are at home as well. And the vibration of anybody in the family affects everybody else always. When you're relaxed, that affects your kids, your partner, everybody. And the same goes for when you're stressed. And so the last thing we want to do at a time when there's a lot of stress in the air, and so people just pick it up, it's just like they feel what's going on, and there's a lot of stress being transmitted through the news, you don't want to add to that through yourself. So if you can learn how to manage yourself better, that's going to be really good for your family. The next reason, and I think we all know this, but I don't think we all take really good care of it, is health. There are many reasons at the moment for taking care of your health, and there is so much evidence that stress is a major contributor to health problems. I think it's really time, whatever is going on, to take notice of this and to take your own health seriously, because looking after yourself is a way of contributing. It enables your business and you to be more successful and to contribute to everything that's going on, rather than becoming dependent on it. So especially if you have some health problems already, please do something. I'll show you the really simple stuff you can do in a minute to take better care of yourself. The next thing is your energy. You need energy to be able to handle a crisis. We all need energy, and energy is what I will talk about a little bit more in a moment. A major outcome of reducing stress is that you make better decisions. And every single good decision you make is going to make a difference for the future. I think that the number one priority at the moment in business is to make good decisions. And you cannot do that if your mind is overwhelmed, you're thinking all the time, you're worrying and you're afraid, okay? So in the name of the future of your business and the success of it, being able to make good decisions is essential. And the other thing is the long-term impact. We don't actually know how long the current situation is going to go on, and we don't know how long the implications or the ramifications of it are going to continue. And so I think we have to have a long-term view in this. It's not like, well, we'll just get through this really hard time and then I can do something about everything else. It may be that this is going to continue and we need to prepare ourselves now for long term. I noticed that everybody who is doing that is already beginning to feel better. And the people who are putting it off are not feeling so good. So take a long-term view. It really works. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about energy, because that's what I have spent all my life pretty much learning, studying, training, teaching, and coaching people in. So energy is really simple. You know what it's like to feel like that. You know what it's like when it feels like your battery's completely empty. You probably know what it feels like to be kind of half full, getting through the day, surviving, getting stuff off your to-do list. And you probably know what it's like from time to time feeling that your battery's really charged, really full. And you know you make better decisions. You get far more done. You're way more productive. You're a nicer person to be around. We all know that about ourselves. So I want to teach you a very simple principle of energy, because if you understand this, you will always know what to do when you're in that place or that place. Okay? This is what I learned from my Chinese masters, and it's what I teach all the time. When we are relaxed, our energy channels, so the channels that energy flows through, open up. Our muscles relax and they expand. And there are these channels which acupuncturists work with that run through the body, and the energy kind of flows through them. We don't need to understand the mechanics of it, because this is really simple stuff. When you're relaxed, your channels are more open and you literally are able to receive more energy. When you get very tense, everything contracts and not so much energy can flow through your system. What happens then is that you are trying to do all the things you need to do with a restricted flow of energy. And so you start to feel a bit tired, it gets a bit hard work, your mind gets a bit cloudy, you can't think so clearly, and you contract more because it's hard, and then you restrict your flow of energy even more, and you enter a kind of slowly descending spiral of becoming more and more contracted, and then more and more tired, and then trying to grind through everything you have to do on a very limited supply of energy. There is an extremely simple way to turn that around, which is literally to relax. Because when you relax, your energy channels open up, you receive more energy, and that energy flows through your whole system, and it makes things easier for you. Now, most people will say to me, well, I know how to relax, Sarah. I can have a glass of wine, or I can read a book, or I can do whatever. But it's interesting that what we usually call relaxation doesn't leave us feeling great by Monday morning. It might be fine over the weekend or when you're on holiday, but is it really working on a daily basis? So I just want to talk a little tiny bit about relaxation and what good relaxation looks like. Actually, it kind of looks like that. It's really that you put yourself in a very comfortable place where you are shut away from everybody else, and you take some time to do absolutely nothing. And that's a very difficult thing to do if your mind is running at 100 miles an hour, which is the reason why people will meditate. They do guided relaxations. They use tools to help them. You'll see that guy actually has a little phone in his pocket and earphones on. That's why people sign up to apps like Headspace all the other kind of meditation apps, because they help you to relax and get free of all the busyness in your mind. That is about as simple as what you need to do. The stuff around exercise and diet, all of those you will do better if you're relaxed. So I want to recommend to you that you take some time every single day, preferably every morning before you start the day, maybe 20 minutes or so, to actually relax and to do this properly so you can recharge your energy. One thing that I've noticed, people who do that tend to gain between 2 and 3 hours productivity a day. I've had that repeatedly reported to me by senior executives and business owners. 2 to 3 hours a day of more effective, more productive, and feeling better in the evening. So not so tired, more energy for your family. So it's really serious stuff, this, although it looks really easy. This time, the one other thing I would like to put in here, this is a time to be a human being first. I think sometimes in business we get so in our heads and so in our processes and our formulae that we forget to be human. There is an enormous opportunity now to be a human being with your family. However concerned you are about things, take some time as a human being with your family and with your team and with yourself. This is a time that is bringing us back in touch with some of our deeper values, and it will make us better people as a result. And if you run your business that way as a human being, then you will have a better business. There is evidence of that now, which I'm not going to share with you, that absolutely definitely works. And the one thing I wanted to share with you, simply because there may be, you may not know really how to do this, I have created a little package of resources, so some guided relaxations that you can listen to. I've shared them with some of the Prime team before, a couple of years ago. And some of them are 20 minutes long, some of them are 5 minutes long, very, very quick things that you can do to help you. So I do actually have a link for that. It's a silly name, Prime Stress, but it was the one that I could get. But it's kind of like reverse, but it was late last night when I got this together. But bit.ly/Prime Stress will actually take you to a collection which is completely free. There's no pitch or anything. It's completely free, and it will give you materials that you can listen to day after day after day in order to be able to relax really well and get the kind of results that I've been talking about. And I have to put in a little, this is a pure direct pitch for a podcast that was launched yesterday that Matt and I have put together called The Spirit of Business. We have 3 episodes on the podcast which are actually about responding to this situation we're in now. And I think that the combination of Matt's incredible business mentoring experience and my experience in the world of people and what goes on the inside of them, it might actually be useful for you. And so I offer that just in the spirit of something that might lift your spirits in these somewhat challenging days. So that's all that I have to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. And look, I really very much appreciate the offers and the gifts that you're giving at this particular point in time. And that's what we're really ultimately trying to do, is all come together and support each other through this difficult time. And it's important to look at, all the things we have to do as business owners, but I can't stress enough around the fact that we need to look after ourselves, and that's what Sarah has done for me over the many years. And I just wanted to make sure that she shared some of those tips with you guys. Yeah, look, Sarah and I have been doing a podcast that gets released this weekend, and it's just there for business owners to get more knowledge and experience and share. And for us, it's all about that. None of it's about sort of it's not a marketing pitch or anything sort of stuff. It's just a great desire to help people through not only challenging times at the moment, but just through business and helping people navigate through the complexity of that. So thank you very much, Sarah.